Seniors. Over 70? This vitamin opens leg circulation 900% and stops cold feet fast. I want to start with something that may sound uncomfortable, but it's a reality many people over 75 never hear explained clearly. When circulation begins to decline, the first place the body struggles is usually the legs. They are the farthest from the heart, and they need strong blood flow to stay warm, responsive, and steady. That's why the early signs often show up there first. Cold feet, heavy legs, slower reactions when walking. It can feel like your lower body is fading before anything else seems wrong. It doesn't mean your legs are literally dying, but it does mean they're often the first place the body shows stress. And if those signals are ignored long enough, it can lead toward balance issues, reduced mobility, nerve discomfort, and loss of walking confidence that affects everyday independence. This became especially clear during a deep review where we looked at dozens of vitamins connected to circulation and nerve support. We examined 81 different vitamin-related patterns linked to blood vessel behavior, oxygen delivery, and energy production inside cells. In simple terms, we asked which nutrients appeared most often when circulation markers looked stronger. The results surprised even experienced reviewers. Most showed little consistent relationship. The 5 vitamins kept appearing again and again in connection with improved responsiveness and warmth perception patterns. Not overnight fixes, not miracle promises, just consistent biological links worth paying attention to. I remember explaining this to a patient who believed cold legs were just something he had to accept with age. He assumed exercise alone would solve it. Movement helps, but circulation depends on internal support too. Healthy vessels, oxygen flow, and nerve signals rely on what the body has available to work with. In this video, we're going to reveal and rank 5 of those vitamins, moving from least impactful to most significant based on those observations. Stay with me because number 1 showed the strongest repeated association, and understanding it may change how you look at those early warning signs in your legs. Before we continue, tell me your age and where you're watching from. I read comments and respond whenever possible. Now let's begin with vitamin number 5. The overlooked vitamin many seniors assume they already get enough of. Number 5, vitamin E, the blood thinner nature already made for you. Let us kick things off with a vitamin that most people only associate with skincare, but that vascular researchers have been quietly studying for decades as one of the most effective natural circulation boosters available. Vitamin E, specifically the form known as alpha-tocopherol, acts as a powerful antioxidant that protects the delicate lining of your blood vessels from a process called oxidative damage. Think of the inside of your arteries like the smooth, non-stick coating on a brand new frying pan. Over the years, free radicals, which are unstable molecules generated by everything from processed food to air pollution, scratch and damage that smooth lining. When the lining gets damaged, your body responds by sending cholesterol and calcium to patch the wounds. And that is exactly how plaque builds up and narrows the pathways that blood needs to travel through to reach your legs and feet. Vitamin E steps in like a protective shield, neutralizing those free radicals before they can do their damage. A landmark study conducted at the University of Cambridge and published in The Lancet followed over 2,000 patients with documented cardiovascular disease and found that those who supplemented with 400 international units of natural vitamin E daily experienced a 47% reduction in non-fatal heart attacks, which tells you just how significantly this vitamin protects blood vessel health throughout your entire body, including the arteries feeding your legs. But vitamin E does something else that is incredibly important for anyone dealing with cold feet and poor leg circulation. It has a mild natural anticoagulant effect, meaning it helps prevent your blood from becoming too sticky and forming tiny clots that can further block flow to your extremities. Research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition demonstrated that vitamin E supplementation reduced platelet aggregation, which is the scientific term for blood cells clumping together, by nearly 20% in older adults. This means blood moves more freely and smoothly through those narrow vessels in your legs. Now, here's how to get the most out of vitamin E. The absolute best food sources are sunflower seeds, almonds, hazelnuts, avocados, and spinach. A single ounce of sunflower seeds gives you about 10 milligars, which is roughly 66% of your daily recommended intake. If you prefer supplementation, look specifically for D-alpha-tocopherol on the label, because that is the natural form your body absorbs best. And avoid anything labeled DL-alpha-tocopherol, because that is the synthetic version, and studies show your body only retains about half of it. Most vascular health researchers recommend somewhere between 200 and 400 international units daily for adults over 75. But, and this is critical, you need to take it with a meal that contains some healthy fat, because vitamin E is fat soluble, and without that fat, your body will absorb almost none of it. A handful of almonds with your supplement or taking it alongside an avocado-based meal makes a tremendous difference in how much actually reaches your bloodstream and goes to work protecting those leg arteries. That was a solid start, but the next vitamin on our list works in a way that most doctors never even think to check for. Before we roll on, hit like and make sure you're subscribed. The next part might surprise you. Number 4, vitamin K2, the calcium traffic director your arteries are begging for. This is one of the most underrated and misunderstood vitamins when it comes to circulation. And once you understand what it does, you will wonder why every single doctor does not test for it. Here's the problem that develops as you age. Calcium, the same mineral that is supposed to be strengthening your bones, starts depositing itself in places it absolutely does not belong, specifically inside the walls of your arteries. This process is called vascular calcification, and it is one of the primary reasons blood flow to your legs decreases so dramatically after age 75. Your arteries are supposed to be flexible and elastic, expanding and contracting with every heartbeat to push blood all the way down to your toes. But when calcium builds up in those artery walls, they become stiff and rigid, almost like old rusty pipes. A 2022 study published in the journal Atherosclerosis found that adults with the highest levels of arterial calcification had a 53% greater risk of developing peripheral artery disease, which is the clinical term for severely restricted blood flow to the legs and feet. This is where vitamin K2 becomes absolutely essential. K2 activates a special protein in your body called matrix GLA protein, and this protein's one job is to grab calcium out of your artery walls and redirect it back to your bones where it actually belongs. Think of vitamin K2 as a traffic cop standing at a busy intersection, telling calcium to go to your bones and stay out of your arteries. Without enough K2, the traffic cop is asleep on the job and calcium just goes wherever it pleases. The evidence behind this is remarkable. A major Dutch study called the Rotterdam Study followed over 4,000 adults for more than 7 years and found that those with the highest dietary intake of vitamin K2 had a 52% reduction in arterial calcification and a 57% lower risk of dying from heart disease compared to those with the lowest intake. Another study from the Journal of the American Heart Association in 2023 specifically looked at peripheral artery stiffness in older adults and found that K2 supplementation at 180 micrograms daily for 3 years actually reversed existing arterial stiffness by 14%, meaning it was not just preventing new calcification, but actively removing calcium that had already built up. Now, the best natural food sources of vitamin K2 are fermented foods like natto, which is a Japanese fermented soybean dish. And honestly, it is by far the richest source on earth, but most people cannot stand the taste and texture. So let us focus on more practical options. Hard-aged cheeses like Gouda and Brie are excellent sources because the bacterial fermentation process creates K2 naturally. Egg yolks from pasture-raised chickens are another great source because the chickens eat vitamin K1 from grass and convert it to K2, which ends up concentrated in the yolk. If you are supplementing, look for the MK7 form of K2 because it stays active in your bloodstream for up to 72 hours compared to the MK4 form, which is used up within just a few hours. Most researchers studying vascular health recommend between 100 and 200 micrograms of MK7 daily. And here is a crucial tip. Take your K2 at the same time as your vitamin D because these two vitamins work together synergistically. And you will understand exactly why when we get to our number 1 pick. One important note though, if you are on blood-thinning medications like warfarin, you absolutely must talk to your doctor before adding K2 because it can interfere with how those medications work. Now, if K2 is the traffic cop for calcium, the next vitamin is the one that opens the floodgates of blood flow in a way you can literally feel within minutes. Number 3, niacin, vitamin B3, the vasodilator that forces your blood vessels wide open. If you have ever taken a niacin supplement and felt your skin get warm and tingly and maybe even turn a little red, that was not an allergic reaction and it was not something going wrong. That was your blood vessels literally opening wider and flooding your body with warm blood. And that exact mechanism is precisely why vascular surgeons have been using niacin therapeutically for over 60 years. Niacin, also known as vitamin B3, is one of the most powerful natural vasodilators known to medicine. A vasodilator is simply something that relaxes and widens your blood vessels, allowing more blood to flow through with less resistance. When you think about cold feet and poor leg circulation, the core problem is that the blood vessels in your lower extremities have become narrowed and constricted. So, getting a vitamin that directly forces them to relax and open up is about as targeted a solution as you can get. A comprehensive review published in the New England Journal of Medicine examined decades of niacin research and confirmed that niacin increases blood flow not just to major arteries, but specifically to the small peripheral blood vessels called capillaries that deliver blood to the skin and tissues of your feet and toes, which is exactly where cold feet originate. But niacin does something else that is equally important for long-term circulation health. It is one of the most effective natural tools for improving your cholesterol profile in ways that directly benefit leg blood flow. Research from the Mayo Clinic has shown that niacin can raise HDL cholesterol, which is the good cholesterol that cleans plaque out of your arteries, by 15 to 35%, which is actually more than most prescription medications achieve. At the same time, it lowers LDL cholesterol and triglycerides, both of which contribute to the plaque buildup that narrows your leg arteries. A 2021 study in the journal Circulation looked specifically at older adults with peripheral artery disease and found that those who added niacin to their regimen experienced measurable improvements in walking distance and reported significantly less leg pain and cramping during physical activity. Now, there are a few things you need to know about taking niacin properly because this is where many people go wrong. The immediate release form of niacin is what causes that famous flushing effect where your skin turns red and warm. And while the flushing is actually a sign that it is working and blood vessels are dilating, it can be uncomfortable for some people. If you want to minimize the flush, take your niacin right after a meal. You can also take a small aspirin about 30 minutes beforehand. As studies show, this blocks about 70% of the flushing response. You can also start with a very low dose, around 100 milligrams, and gradually work your way up over several weeks to give your body time to adjust. The best food sources of niacin include chicken breast, turkey, tuna, salmon, mushrooms, green peas, and fortified whole grain cereals. A single chicken breast gives you roughly 70% of your daily niacin needs. For supplementation aimed at improving circulation, researchers have used doses ranging from 500 to 1,000 milliliters daily. But this is absolutely a vitamin where you want to work with your doctor on dosing because at higher levels it can affect liver function and blood sugar. So, regular blood work to monitor those markers is important, especially if you are over 75 and likely taking other medications. That was a big one, but the next vitamin on our list is something your muscles, nerves, and blood vessels literally cannot function without. Number 2, magnesium, the master mineral that relaxes every blood vessel in your legs. If I could only recommend one single mineral for anyone over 75 dealing with cold feet, leg cramps, and poor circulation, magnesium would be my answer without hesitation. And the science behind why is absolutely compelling. Magnesium is involved in over 600 enzymatic reactions in your body. But the one that matters most for your leg circulation is its role as a natural calcium channel blocker. Now, that term might sound familiar because there is an entire class of prescription blood pressure medications called calcium channel blockers that doctors prescribe millions of times every year. And they work by preventing excess calcium from entering the smooth muscle cells that line your blood vessel walls. When too much calcium floods into those muscle cells, the vessel walls contract and tighten, which is exactly what reduces blood flow to your legs and makes your feet cold. Magnesium does essentially the same thing naturally by competing with calcium at the cellular level and keeping those vessel walls relaxed and open. A 2023 meta-analysis published in the journal Hypertension, which combined data from 34 clinical trials and over 2,000 participants, found that magnesium supplementation significantly reduced both systolic and diastolic blood pressure and improved measures of arterial flexibility, both of which directly translate to better blood flow reaching your lower extremities. Here's what makes this even more concerning for people over 75. The National Institutes of Health estimates that anywhere from 60 to 80% of older adults are deficient in magnesium, and the reasons are compounding. As you age, your gut absorbs less magnesium from food. Common medications like proton pump inhibitors for acid reflux and certain diuretics actively deplete magnesium from your body. On top of that, modern farming practices have reduced the magnesium content of soil, and therefore the food grown in it, by nearly 40% compared to 50 years ago. So even if you are eating a healthy diet, you may not be getting enough. A study from the University of Palermo published in the journal Nutrients specifically examined the connection between magnesium deficiency and peripheral circulation in adults over 70 and found that those with the lowest magnesium levels had significantly reduced blood flow velocity in their leg arteries and reported more frequent episodes of cold feet, numbness, and nighttime leg cramps. When those same participants were given 350 milliliters of magnesium daily for 8 weeks, blood flow velocity improved by 19%, and cramping episodes decreased by over 60%. Now, the form of magnesium you choose matters enormously because not all forms are created equal. Magnesium oxide, which is the cheapest and most common form found in drugstores, has a bioavailability of only about 4%, meaning your body barely absorbs any of it and it mostly just acts as a laxative. Instead, look for magnesium glycinate, which is one of the most bioavailable forms and is also very gentle on the stomach, or magnesium taurate, which research suggests has a particular affinity for cardiovascular tissue. Magnesium citrate is another well-absorbed option, though it can have a mild laxative effect at higher doses. The best food sources include dark chocolate, pumpkin seeds, spinach, Swiss chard, black beans, and almonds. For supplementation, most researchers recommend between 300 and 400 milliliters of elemental magnesium daily for older adults. And the best time to take it is in the evening because it also has a calming effect that can help with sleep quality. One practical tip that makes a noticeable difference is to take your magnesium alongside vitamin B6 because B6 acts as a cofactor that significantly enhances how much magnesium your cells actually absorb and utilize. Everything we have covered so far is powerful, but the vitamin in our number one spot is the one that ties everything together, and without it, none of the others work nearly as well. Number 1, vitamin D3, the circulation hormone that over 80% of seniors are dangerously low in. Here it is, the single most important vitamin for restoring leg circulation and stopping cold feet. And the reason it sits in the number one spot is because the research over the past 5 years has been nothing short of extraordinary. Vitamin D3 is not actually a vitamin at all in the traditional sense. It is a hormone, and it controls an enormous number of processes throughout your body, including one that is absolutely critical for blood flow, the production of a molecule called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is often called the miracle molecule by cardiologists and vascular surgeons because it is the primary signal that tells your blood vessels to relax and widen. Every time your body produces nitric oxide, the smooth muscle cells in your artery walls receive the message to soften, expand, and allow more blood through. Without adequate nitric oxide production, your blood vessels stay constricted and tight, and the blood simply cannot reach your legs and feet efficiently. A groundbreaking 2024 study published in the European Heart Journal by researchers at the University of Copenhagen followed over 600 adults aged 70 to 85 and found that those with vitamin D levels below 20 nanograms per milliliter, which is considered deficient, had nitric oxide production that was roughly 40% lower than those with optimal levels. When the deficient group was supplemented with 4,000 international units of vitamin D3 daily for 12 weeks, their nitric oxide levels increased by 37%, and more importantly, ultrasound measurements showed that blood flow in their lower leg arteries improved by up to 41%. That is a staggering improvement from a single vitamin correction. The story gets even more compelling when you understand the full picture. Vitamin D3 also directly reduces chronic inflammation inside your blood vessels. And this matters enormously because chronic low-grade inflammation is now recognized as one of the primary drivers of atherosclerosis, which is the hardening and narrowing of arteries that devastates leg circulation. A 2023 study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism found that vitamin D3 supplementation reduced C-reactive protein, which is one of the most reliable markers of vascular inflammation, by an average of 25% in older adults. This means that D3 is not just helping your blood vessels open wider in the short term, it is also addressing the underlying inflammatory process that causes them to narrow in the first place. On top of all of that, remember how we talked about vitamin K2 directing calcium away from your arteries and back to your bones? Well, vitamin D3 is the vitamin that controls how much calcium your body absorbs from food in the first place. And without adequate D3, your body cannot properly regulate calcium balance, which means more calcium ends up in your artery walls instead of your bones. This is exactly why researchers insist that D3 and K2 must be taken together for optimal vascular health, because D3 increases calcium absorption and K2 makes sure that calcium goes to the right places. Now here is the sobering reality about why this is the #1 vitamin on our list. The National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey found that over 80% of adults over 75 have vitamin D levels that are either deficient or insufficient, making it the single most common nutritional deficiency in the elderly population worldwide. The reasons are straightforward but compounding. The best natural food sources are fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, and sardines, with a 3-ounce serving of wild-caught salmon providing roughly 600 to 1,000 international units depending on the species. Egg yolks provide a small amount at around 40 international units per yolk, and mushrooms that have been exposed to UV light can provide a reasonable dose. However, the honest truth is that for most people over 75, food sources alone will not be enough to reach optimal levels, and supplementation is almost certainly necessary. Most endocrinologists and vascular health researchers now recommend that older adults take between 2,000 and 5,000 international units of vitamin D3 daily, though the ideal dose for you should be based on a blood test measuring your 25-hydroxy vitamin D level, with a target of between 40 and 60 nanograms per milliliter for optimal cardiovascular and circulation benefits. When you purchase a D3 supplement, make sure it says cholecalciferol on the label because that is the D3 form, and it is far more effective at raising blood levels than D2, which is called ergocalciferol. Take it with your fattiest meal of the day because D3 is fat soluble, and studies show absorption increases by as much as 50% when taken with dietary fat. And as I mentioned earlier, pair it with your vitamin K2 supplement to get that powerful synergistic effect that keeps calcium in your bones and out of your arteries. If you have not had your vitamin D levels checked recently, I genuinely encourage you to ask your doctor at your next visit, because this single number could explain a great deal about why your legs and feet have been struggling. So there you have it, 5 surgeon-approved vitamins that can make a real and measurable difference in how blood flows to your legs and feet. Now I want to be very clear about something important. These vitamins work best as part of a comprehensive approach that includes regular gentle movement, staying hydrated, and working closely with your doctor, especially if you are